Can you even recall a time when Las Vegas wasn't just a soulless cash grab drowning in endless resort fees? A time when Treasure Island actually set the Strip ablaze with a real-life pirate war? When the Luxor's pyramid wasn't just a building, but a beacon of pure mystery? When we stood shoulder to shoulder, awestruck, watching majestic lions inside the MGM Grand? Don't look for it now, it's all been wiped from existence. And let's be brutally honest, these icons weren't lost to time or changing tastes. They were systematically executed, sacrificed in the name of the almighty profit margin. In this expose, we will drag the skeletons of Vegas's lost icons back into the light, exposing the cold-blooded greed that tore them down, and issuing a stark warning about how a city's soul gets traded for the cold logic of a balance sheet. First, the Treasure Island Pirate Show. A masterpiece erased by the stroke of an accountant's pen. There was an era, believe it or not, when the Strip itself was the main event. The Treasure Island pirate battle was no cheap roadside attraction. It was a thunderous declaration that you had arrived in a city that defied reality. Every single night, a sea of humanity. Tourists, wide-eyed families, and mesmerized onlookers would choke the sidewalks to witness a full-blown naval conflict. Cannons roared, ships were swallowed by the depths, and pirates clashed in a perfectly staged ballet of destruction. And the most unbelievable part? It cost you nothing. This was no mere sideshow. It was a titan of the Strip, a landmark attraction in its own right, luring millions of people every single year who didn't have to open their wallets for the privilege. For countless families, this was their one shot at experiencing true Vegas spectacle without being bled dry by exorbitant ticket prices. And in that, it was the perfect embodiment of old Vegas. It hooked you, it dazzled you, and it tempted you to stick around for dinner. A few drinks, or the siren's call of a slot machine. So what went so horribly wrong? The answer is as predictable as it is sickening. Money. The new corporate overlords saw thousands of captivated people standing outside, and their only thought was, they aren't inside, buying our overpriced drinks or feeding our hungry casino. In the cold, sterile world of their spreadsheets, the math was simple and brutal. Why waste millions on a spectacle that didn't generate instant trackable revenue? The magic just didn't compute. And so, by 2013, the final cannon fell silent. The lagoon was unceremoniously drained. The ships were torn apart, and the hallowed ground was paved over to become... what else? Another generic shopping plaza and a collection of overpriced restaurants. The symbolism is a staggering, blatant signal of Vegas's new creed, from a spectacle for everyone to a profit machine for the elite few. The Strip was no longer a public carnival. It had been sterilized into a luxury marketplace where every square foot had to bleed dollars to justify its existence. The death of the pirate show was about so much more than losing entertainment. It was a mortal wound to the city's very identity. Treasure Island once delivered on its name, offering a treasure chest of pure wonder and unbridled imagination. Today, it stands as a grim monument to a tragic truth. How swiftly and mercilessly magic is slaughtered when the future is dictated by the cold, dead numbers on a spreadsheet. For anyone who loved the old Vegas, this was a profound betrayal, the first of many. The cannons may have gone silent, but the message from the corporate boardrooms rang out loud and clear. The Vegas you knew, the one built on pure, unadulterated fun, was being deliberately sunk, just like that ship in the lagoon. Now, witness the desecration of the Luxor, a cautionary tale of how magic gets suffocated by conference space. Few sites in Las Vegas have ever commanded such absolute jaw-dropping awe as the Luxor when it first clawed its way into the sky in 1993. A colossal black glass pyramid erupting from the desert floor, crowned with the most powerful beam of light on Earth. A beacon visible from 250 miles away, but it was what lay inside. Visitors were plunged into an Egyptian fantasyland, dwarfed by towering pharaohs surrounded by walls etched in ancient hieroglyphs, and carried away on themed marvels like the Nile River ride. For anyone stepping inside for the first time, it was a shock to the system. This wasn't a hotel lobby, it was a portal. You were stepping through a gateway into another dimension. This was no cheap gimmick. The Luxor was the absolute zenith of 1990s Vegas ambition, a time when casinos refused to be mere buildings. They were meticulously crafted alternate realities. Entire families would wander its halls, the children mesmerized by the spectacle, while the adults lost themselves in the fantasy. We're talking about the largest atrium on the entire planet. A cavernous space so vast you could park multiple Boeing 747s inside of it. The theme wasn't just decoration, it was total, breathtaking immersion. But flash forward to our grim reality and you'll find that magic has been systematically exercised. The Nile River ride? Gone. The intricate Egyptian artistry? Stripped away. That sacred feeling of entering an ancient world? Erased. The Luxor's soul has been gutted, replaced with the sterile beige anonymity of corporate design. That once mystical pyramid now serves as a glorified convention center, where there was once genuine wonder. Now there are only bland meeting rooms and soul-crushing business expos. And the reason for this desecration? It's the same tired, greedy motive that sank the pirate ships: profit. The corporate overlords coldly calculated that imagination wasn't fattening their pockets fast enough. They decreed that maintaining the elaborate decor, the breathtaking shows, and the thrilling rides was an unforgivable expense. Meanwhile, bland conferences and soul-crushing trade expos promised a predictable, steady flow of cash. The math was brutally, sickeningly simple. Apparently, wonder doesn't pay quarterly dividends to shareholders. And the most bitter irony of all? The Luxor's pyramid still stands, a haunting beacon over the Strip, but its very soul has been violently hollowed out, leaving an empty shell. Unsuspecting tourists book a room inside one of the most legendary monuments in Vegas history, only to be slapped with the grim reality of a generic, depressingly dated hotel. The pharaohs and sacred hieroglyphs that once gave it life have been unceremoniously scrubbed away, replaced by sterile minimalism and cold corporate efficiency. This isn't just a renovation, it's a symptom of a terminal disease, the death of themed Vegas. The Luxor's tragic transformation is a monument to how this city sacrificed its very soul on the altar of the spreadsheet. And while the suits in their ivory towers toast to their stable convention revenue, countless visitors are left to grieve for the magic that's been extinguished. In a city that once dared to build pyramids in the desert, we're confronted with a chilling truth. Not even the grandest illusions are safe from the cold, unforgiving calculus of corporate greed. The Luxor's light still shines, but it's the glow of a tombstone. The captivating mystique that mesmerized millions has been desecrated, replaced by the mundane drone of PowerPoint slides and lifeless trade booths. The MGM Grand Lions, a living legend reduced to a line item on an insurance policy. For decades, that roaring lion was so much more than a mere logo. It was visceral. It was real. You could step into that glass-walled habitat and witness majestic lions, lounging, playing, prowling, a mere pane of glass separating you from raw, untamed power. For countless families, this was the quintessential Vegas memory, a spectacle that demanded no ticket, no tribute to the slot machines. The Lions were a gift, embodying the raw grandeur promised by the MGM name. When the habitat debuted in 1999, it instantly became one of the Strip's most cherished and astonishingly free attractions. Tourists stood in absolute awe of these magnificent beasts, right in the heart of a casino floor. It was a breathtaking, jarring collision of wild nature and the neon jungle of slot machines. This wasn't just entertainment, it was a masterstroke of branding. MGM's iconic roaring lion was suddenly given flesh, blood, and a thundering voice. Guess the lions vanished. But why? It was never a lack of interest. The habitat was perpetually mobbed by fascinated visitors. No, the true culprit was a far more insidious predator: cost and liability. The responsibility of caring for nearly 30 lions, from their meals to their medical needs, was deemed an unacceptable expense on the balance sheet. Throw in the crippling cost of liability insurance for housing apex predators in the city's heart, and the entire spectacle became an easy target for the corporate bean counters who see magic only as a number in a ledger. Animal welfare activists, too, added their voices to the growing concerns. Critics rightfully argued that lions had no place in the chaotic casino environment of flashing lights, choking smoke, and a 24/7 torrent of human traffic. And despite MGM's hollow assurances that the animals were rotated from a private ranch for mere hours a day, the public relations battle was a migraine the executives simply refused to endure. And so, with a cold stroke of a pen, the habitat was shuttered, and the lions were exiled to a sanctuary far from the Strip. And the sacred ground they once roamed was grotesquely converted into, what else? More soulless retail. Today, where you once witnessed lions, you can now buy luxury trinkets or sip on ludicrously overpriced cocktails. The vanishing of the MGM Lions is a tragedy that signifies so much more than the end of one quirky attraction. It's a damning indictment of Vegas's insidious shift away from free, family-friendly wonders and toward the cold, hard religion of revenue per square foot. For the children who once pressed their hands against that glass, the memory of seeing a real lion is an irreplaceable, magical treasure. For today's visitors, that magic has been callously replaced by just another generic, forgettable shopping experience. Vegas once had the audacity to mix the wild with the whimsical, but in 2025, the lions are imprisoned not by glass walls, but by the cold iron bars of a balance sheet. The Mirage Volcano and its white tigers, another golden era devoured by the insatiable appetite of corporate takeovers. If one resort was the undisputed king of spectacle-driven Vegas, it was the Mirage. When it burst onto the scene in 1989, it didn't just raise the bar, it obliterated the very concept of a bar. Its crown jewel was the erupting volcano roaring out front, a primal, fiery nighttime ritual where flames clawed at the sky. Tribal drums thundered in your chest, and massive crowds watched the Strip literally explode with untamed energy. It was gloriously free. It was utterly wild. And it pulsed with a life that no sanitized shopping mall or sterile convention center could ever hope to replicate. But the Mirage was just getting started. Inside, a hidden world awaited. Here, awestruck guests came face to face with the mythical white tigers of Siegfried and Roy, rare, exotic beasts transformed into the undisputed kings of the Strip. For an entire generation, their shows were the most fiercely coveted tickets in this entire city. A breathtaking spectacle of illusion, raw danger, and pure theatrical genius. The Secret Garden was a portal, allowing mere mortals to wander past the domains of tigers, dolphins, and leopards. A shocking splash of jungle, untamed in the heart of the desert. For anyone who came here in the 90s and the early 2000s, the Mirage wasn't just an experience, it was the Vegas experience. The erupting volcano, a beacon in the night, the majestic white tigers within. This was the promise that Vegas would stop at nothing to leave you breathless. But the cold, dead hand of corporate takeovers has a chilling talent for burying magic under a mountain of spreadsheets. And so, as the Mirage was passed from one corporate suit to another, it finally fell into the portfolio of Hard Rock International, a brand more interested in guitars than grandeur. Suddenly, the volcano and the living wonders it housed were no longer assets. They were reclassified as liabilities. The white tigers were tragically retired following Siegfried and Roy's devastating accident in 2003. And then, the final nail in the coffin. The Secret Garden was shuttered for good in 2022. And the volcano, once a sacred nightly ritual on the Strip, is now on death row. Condemned to be demolished for what? Another soulless, guitar-shaped hotel tower. The executives, in their infinite wisdom, dare to call this progress, claiming it will inject fresh energy into the Strip. But anyone with a memory and a soul sees it for what it is. Tearing down the icons of the Mirage isn't innovation. It's a calculated, cold-blooded erasure of history. Let's be brutally honest. The volcano wasn't extinguished because the crowds vanished. It was destroyed because a free spectacle doesn't directly sell overpriced cocktails or luxury suites. The animals weren't sent away because people stopped caring. They were written off as too expensive, too controversial, a problem to be managed, not a wonder to be cherished. And so, with every hostile takeover, another piece of the very soul of Las Vegas is carved out and thrown away. Where fire once roared against the night sky, we'll get another sterile glass tower. Where majestic tigers once held court, there will be bland, generic retail space. The Mirage once promised genuine awe. Today, twisted by the logic of the boardroom, it promises only redevelopment. And in that one, bloodless word, lies the horrifying truth of what Las Vegas has sacrificed. It hasn't just lost attractions. It has lost its capacity for wonder. Cheap buffets and the 99-cent shrimp cocktail. These weren't just deals, they were the vanishing emblems of an era. For decades, Las Vegas made you a sacred promise. Come here hungry, leave completely satisfied, and don't you dare worry about the bill. Those legendary buffets, overflowing with mountains of crab legs, prime rib, and endless desserts, were never just about the food. They were a brilliant, seductive form of marketing. The casinos practically gave the food away, knowing the real prize was waiting for them on the gaming floor. And nothing, absolutely nothing, symbolized that golden era better than the legendary 99-cent shrimp cocktail, an institution at places like the Golden Gate. It was the unspoken contract. Vegas would feed you for next to nothing, and in return, you'd stick around and try your luck. An entire family could eat for less than $10. A couple could feast like royalty for the cost of a single sad dinner back home. And for a moment, every tourist felt like a high roller. These bargains were woven into the city's very DNA. It was Vegas saying, you belong here, no matter how much is in your wallet. Fast forward to today, and that generous spirit has been brutally gutted. The buffets have either vanished entirely or have been grotesquely transformed into luxury dining experiences costing a staggering $50. $75 or even more than $100 per person. That humble shrimp cocktail, once the very symbol of affordability, is now a forgotten relic, shoved aside for pretentious gourmet small plates and terrifying market price menus. The result? What was once an open invitation to everyone now feels like a private, exclusive club, with a bouncer checking your bank account at the door. So why the betrayal? The answer is as simple as it is sickening. Corporate math. The bean counters decided that maintaining those glorious, massive buffets was just too costly, especially as food and labor costs crept up. The executives saw a golden opportunity: make far more profit by shutting down the buffets and forcing guests into high-margin restaurants fronted by celebrity chefs. So instead of feeding the masses and making everyone feel welcome, they now target a tiny elite group of high-spending patrons. This shift is a brutal, unforgivable slap in the face to longtime visitors. For the retirees, the families on a budget, the regular folks, that cheap buffet was the lifeline that made a Vegas trip possible. You take that away and they simply stop coming. The internet is flooded with comments from former regulars, all screaming the same heartbroken message. Vegas isn't fun anymore when you're being nickel and dimed into oblivion for every little thing. This isn't just about food. It reflects a profound psychological break with the past. The old Vegas understood a simple truth: make people feel welcome with generosity and bargains, and you create a powerful goodwill that naturally flows back to the casino floor. That lesson, it seems, has been tragically forgotten. Today's Vegas is a cold, calculating machine, where every plate, every sip, every single moment is just another cynical opportunity for the house to bleed you dry. The loss of cheap buffets and those legendary 99-cent shrimp cocktails might seem like a minor casualty next to shuttered volcanoes and sunken pirate ships, but in truth, it's a devastating blow. This was an assault on the very soul of what Vegas once promised. Pure, unadulterated indulgence, accessible to everyone. Without that promise, Vegas is no longer a playground. It's a gilded cage, a luxury trap designed to ensnare you. Let's be brutally honest. Theming is dead. The corporate overlords have ripped out the fantasy and replaced it with the sterile beige of conference rooms. There was a glorious time when to enter a Vegas resort was to be transported to another realm entirely. The Strip was once a breathtaking tapestry of impossible dreams. A colossal pyramid shimmering in the desert heat, a fairy tale castle at Excalibur, romantic gondolas drifting through the canals of a recreated Venice, and even the iconic New York skyline, reborn in dazzling neon and steel. Every single property was a magnificent stage, promising not just a game of chance, but a genuine escape from reality. Vegas was never just a city. It was a living, breathing collection of dreams made real. But walk that same strip today, and you can't escape the gnawing feeling that a vital piece is gone, that the soul has been ripped out. That enchanting themed magic has been systematically dismantled, replaced by the soulless, generic architecture of corporate ambition. The very resorts that once beckoned you to wander through ancient Egypt or the romantic avenues of Paris now feel like nothing more than glorified upscale business hotels. You're no longer exploring fantasy worlds, you're being herded like cattle into sterile convention halls and high-end shopping promenades, and cold, minimalist lobbies that could be in any major city on Earth. And make no mistake, this transformation was a calculated, deliberate act. The executives in their ivory towers discovered that while themes brought in the masses, they didn't directly pad the bottom line in the way they demanded. The upkeep on castles, pyramids, and fantastical rides cost millions annually, whereas bland conference space delivered a steady, predictable stream of revenue. Predictable, soulless revenue. And so, piece by piece, the whimsy was brutally gutted. The Luxor shamelessly traded its magical Nile River ride for yet more exhibition halls. Treasure Island surrendered its iconic pirates to the altar of another shopping mall. Even the legendary Caesar's Palace, once a monument to Roman excess, has diluted its mythology for the sake of generic, profitable retail. But the fallout from this is far more devastating than just ugly buildings. Theming was the very essence of Las Vegas, the cultural glue that made it utterly unique. It was the reason families dared to bring their children, the reason honeymooners were swept up in the romance, the reason tourists from every corner of the planet believed this spectacle was worth crossing entire oceans to witness. In its blind pursuit of sterile corporate logic, Vegas has willfully sacrificed its greatest asset, the unparalleled power to transport you to a reality that existed nowhere else on Earth. Critics are calling it a perverse Disneyification in reverse. While Disney brilliantly reinvests billions into ever more immersive worlds to guarantee guests' return, Vegas has chosen the path of self-destruction, tearing down its own illusions for the cold comfort of a balance sheet. The irony is absolutely staggering. The city that built a global empire on pure fantasy is now cannibalizing itself for the sake of a PowerPoint presentation. Oh sure, the conventions bring in money, but I ask you, where is the magic? Do they forge the kind of indelible, lifelong memories that make tourists yearn to come back? For a growing, disillusioned chorus of visitors, the answer is a resounding no. And you see the proof in every resentful online comment declaring, Vegas just doesn't feel like Vegas anymore. In its desperate chase for cold efficiency, the city has tragically forgotten the very heart of its own irresistible allure. Theming was never just decoration. It was the city's very soul. And today, that soul lies suffocating under miles of bland conference room carpeting. This is the grim reality of corporate logic, the systematic murder of magic for profit. If you truly want to grasp the tragedy of how Vegas lost its magic, you must look past the ghost of pirate shows and the memory of cheap buffets, or the rubble of volcanoes. You need to stare directly into the cold, dead eyes of a spreadsheet. Because in the new Las Vegas, every single decision is filtered through one ruthless, unforgiving calculation. Does this generate immediate quantifiable profit? If the answer is anything but a resounding yes, it is sentenced to death. Your modern corporate executive doesn't see a free pirate show as brilliant marketing. They see it as a missed revenue stream. They don't see a $5 buffet as a gesture of goodwill. They see a financial liability. They don't look at a magnificent themed pyramid and feel wonder. They see a costly maintenance nightmare. This corporate mindset is chillingly simple. If it cannot be immediately converted into cash, it is deemed worthless and systematically eradicated. Consider the convention center, the perfect soulless example. A spectacular pirate battle might thrill thousands of tourists for free, but a 200,000 square foot expo center guarantees millions upon millions in rental fees, bloated catering contracts, and massive hotel block bookings. To the mind of a modern casino CEO, the choice is insultingly easy. The fact that one path creates magic and the other manufactures mind-numbing boredom is utterly irrelevant. The spreadsheet has spoken, and the magic must die. This cold calculating logic is the ghost in the machine, driving every single gut-wrenching change we've witnessed for 2 decades. Free parking? Vanished. Because some executive in a boardroom decided you'd moan, but you'd ultimately pay up. Those legendary cheap buffets? Executed. All because high-end dining promised fatter profit margins. Theme spectacles? Demolished, because the soulless revenue from conventions was deemed safer than the exhilarating risk of gambling. An industry that once thrived on luck and competition, now utterly neutered. It's the exact same predatory playbook that airlines and telecom giants use to bleed their customers dry. Gut the experience, charge more for less, and bank on sheer customer inertia to stop people from finally walking away. But the danger for Vegas is infinitely greater because, unlike the airlines, nobody is forced to come to Vegas. It is a choice, an indulgence, and people are now, with terrifying clarity, choosing to go elsewhere. The irony is so thick, it's suffocating. The very magic they now dismiss as unprofitable, the cheap food, the free spectacle, the wild, impossible themes, that was the bedrock of the Vegas legend. It made people feel seen, dazzled, and desperate to return. By amputating these very things, Vegas has committed an act of stunning self-sabotage, destroying its own unique advantage. You can find shopping malls and business conferences anywhere in America. But where else on this earth could you witness a volcano spewing fire into the night sky? Or a colossal pyramid bathing the desert in an otherworldly glow? This soulless corporate logic might inflate the next quarterly report, but long-term, it's a poison that's rotting the city's very soul. In their mad chase for profit margins, Vegas has auctioned off nostalgia, murdered the spectacle, and cultivated something far more toxic in its place: utter indifference. Because the most horrifying calculation of all is this: when the public finally stops caring, no spreadsheet, no algorithm, no profit and loss statement will save you. When the magic died, the tourists started to disappear. Las Vegas never just sold hotel rooms and casino chips. It sold an impossible glittering dream. The Strip was a fantasy made real, where pirate galleons clashed on moonlit seas and ancient pyramids hummed with arcane power. Volcanoes tore open the earth with fire, and majestic white tigers held court behind shimmering glass. It was never just about gambling. It was about pure, unadulterated wonder. Tourists didn't just come to test their luck. They came to shatter the chains of their mundane reality, to step into a world that defied all logic. But when you strip away that magic, what in God's name is even left? A sterile landscape of luxury malls, beige conference centers, and $12 coffees. A city where they charge you just to park your car, where a buffet costs more than a fine meal back home. And every single step you take is a calculated, predatory attempt to pry your wallet open. For anyone who remembers what it was, Vegas no longer feels like an escape. It feels like a shakedown, and the cold hard numbers tell this tragic story. The data is screaming it. While the corporate convention traffic has grown, the leisure visitors, The middle-class families and the budget travelers, they are vanishing. International tourists, once mesmerized by the promise of only in Vegas attractions, are now finding a better, more honest deal in places like Orlando, Dubai, or even forgotten casino towns like Biloxi or Reno. When you systematically dismantle everything that made you unique, you become nothing more than another generic, overpriced tourist trap. The tragic irony is that those so-called unprofitable attractions, the pirate brawls, the shrimp cocktails, the sprawling, cheap buffets, their value was never measured in short-term dollars. They were investments in loyalty, in creating a buzz, a word-of-mouth wildfire that brought generations back year after year. Without them, Vegas isn't just losing visitors. It's losing its very identity. This is the catastrophic endgame of corporate logic devoid of any shred of vision. You can bulldoze a volcano for a guitar-shaped hotel and replace a lion's den with a luxury boutique. And you can swap out shrimp cocktails for pretentious celebrity chef restaurants. But what you can never ever replace is the raw awe people felt when they first saw the Strip ignite in flame. That feeling is priceless. And once you extinguish it, it's gone forever. Today, a terrifying question is echoing across the internet, asked by more and more people every day. Is Vegas still worth it? For a city built on a foundation of pure illusion, that is the most lethal question imaginable. Because the moment the masses decide the answer is no, the magic that fueled Vegas for decades doesn't just vanish. It shatters into a million forgotten memories. Vegas hasn't just lost its attractions. It has lost its swagger, its charm, its very power to make an ordinary person feel extraordinary. And in that catastrophic loss lies the final, terrifying gamble. Can Las Vegas even survive without its magic? Las Vegas once trafficked in dreams. Now, it just peddles overpriced rooms and watered-down cocktails. The pirate ships, the volcanoes, and the legendary buffets have all been sacrificed. And with them, the very feelings they conjured. By chasing quarterly profits and declaring war on magic, Vegas is risking the one thing that made it legendary in the first place. And now this gaping wound is a horrifying spectacle that tourists everywhere are finally forced to confront.